Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Listen for Real. I'm Jennifer Brown, and it is pure gift and pleasure that you have come back to join us today, but that I am also with Dr. Valerie Rain. And Dr. Valerie, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here with you and your listeners, Jennifer. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So y'all, you've heard me mention before on this podcast, particularly back in the patriarchy versus feminism episode with Julie Goring in the fall. You heard me say that there was a time not long ago that I would have told you the patriarchy was like conspiracy theory, that it wasn't something that exists. I now understand differently. And part of the reason I understand that differently, was Julie Goring gently did not toss me aside as an ignorant, myopic individual, but she asked me curious questions and offered to lead me a little bit as a woman. And then I was introduced to the work of Dr. Valerie Rain and her book, The Patriarchy Stress Disorder, among other things. I mean, that is one aspect of her body of work. And I say this because I will not say I'm embarrassed. I used to say that I'm embarrassed to admit that I was as ignorant as I was, but you know what? We all come from a different space and a different level of influence. And then to claim embarrassment does not serve us, especially if we want to open our mind, as we do on this podcast, to get out of our own echo chamber. Because remember, an echo chamber is formed when you subscribe to, whether it's news sources, institutions that you're in, the people you hang around, who all neatly reinforce the beliefs you already have. That is no longer, that's untenable. I can't do that any longer. I know too much about so many different things, and I am ultimately incredibly curious and dazzled and find awe and wonder in so many things. And while this topic could be seen as heavy, weighty, difficult to process, it is also, in my opinion, what sets us free. Because if you what you don't know, how can you change? If you can't expand your perspective, how can you shift your paradigm where necessary and when it's critical? So for that reason, I sit at the feet of people who are willing to just take some time and share their lived experience, share their perspective. That's what this podcast is all about. That's what conversations like these need to embody. And so, Dr. Valerie, I love that you're willing to do this and just engage in a real conversation with a new friend, because that's what I'm hopeful is that as people listen to this, they don't have to feel bad that they were, let's say, ignorant to the existence of patriarchal systems and how it may have oppressed them and is still. They can go, oh, now that I know this, these are the steps I can take, and I can celebrate in that. And I'm going to say one more thing. This is a long intro, friends, but my audience is fairly used to this because I want to set up the container here. This is so important. My work is about speaking and also elevating and amplifying the voices of women, especially marginalized women. And there are many women right now who are still oppressed, whether it is in their own marriage or partnership. They cannot use their voice, or maybe it's the country or government they are under at this very moment. It's actually a moral imperative to me and to the women I work with that we raise our voices, oftentimes even for women who can't yet. Yet is the operative word there. That's important to me. And so I just want to set that container of incredible intention and hope and hold the vision for where we can go with this conversation, because yes, it is hard. And yes, it's weighty. And I don't want you to hold back, Dr. Valerie, from what you know and what you've seen. It's so important, but I also have incredible hope for what's to come. And for this rising feminine that shows up in all shapes, forms, and sizes. And so would you just talk Would you define the terms for people? There's people who are listening who, like me, didn't even understand the existence of the patriarchy, thought it was a word like a conspiracy theorist would throw around, that it wasn't real. Would you explain it a little bit and then talk about how you came upon this concept of this patriarchy stress disorder and your work around that? Because I think that's essential.
Hmm. So on the same page with you, Jennifer. I love the container you set up, and yeah, totally aligned with all these intentions and this vision. Where do we start? Patriarchy. It's been around by some accounts for 5 to 10,000 years. It hasn't always been around. Civilizations that predate the patriarchal system are said to be centered on the goddess, around the goddess. These were very different civilizations, very, very different game. And what we've known throughout the history of patriarchy is that it has created disempowerment of women, and that's across a few key domains. So I'm just going to simplify things to the core so that we can drill into them a little more. And the domains are money. Women have been excluded from participating with money. Women could not make their own money, could not own property. Sovereignty. And, and women's labor has been free. So lest we forget, for thousands of years. Sovereignty. Women could not make their own decisions. Women were property. Women didn't have the ownership of their own body, not their body autonomy, not parental rights, not legal rights as far as their own children were concerned. All right. Women could not marry for love. Women could not get a divorce. Women could not survive without a man, let alone love anyone but a man, or love did not even factor in, really. Nobody cared about what a woman's desires, period. So sovereignty and how that translated into relationships and everything. And really, this is the legacy. This has been intergenerational trauma, because oppression is traumatic, in case I need to make that link. And what is trauma? Trauma is anything that makes us feel unsafe, physically or emotionally, in our fullest authentic expression. This is how I've come to define trauma, based on my many years of experience as a therapist, as a psychologist, working with trauma, discovering my own trauma, which, based on conventional definition, by the way, I could not discover. And yet I've had symptoms of trauma, and I was just baffled. How come I have symptoms of trauma, but no trauma that I remember? And now the discovery of patriarchy stress disorder opened my eyes on the fact that not all trauma is something that we've experienced in this lifetime. Based on discoveries in the field of epigenetics, we know that trauma is genetically transmitted. And so we are born into this invisible inner prison of trauma, which means, so trauma, when trauma is created, so are trauma adaptations, ways in which we've learned to survive. And women have learned to survive throughout thousands of years by keeping themselves small, by staying invisible, or being seen but not heard, but also not seen all that much either, right? So these trauma adaptations are dictating to us from our subconscious, unbeknownst to us, that it is not safe to be making a lot of money, that it is not safe to be deeply intimate with somebody and let them see all of you, that it's not safe to speak your mind, that it's not safe to be visible, it's not safe to be influential impactful, that we are not good leaders, that we are not blah, 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 blah. That we must look a certain way to have a say, something that I've come to call patriarchy perfect. You gotta have a certain everything, certain skin color, a certain hair texture, certain weight, certain age,
Yeah.
to get some power, right? To get some power from patriarchy. But it's not real power. It's crumbs off the patriarchal table. And that's not enough. That's not good enough. That's not okay. That's not okay. And so for many years, as women have been coming to the table, as women started working in the workforce, getting salaries, and women have been coming to the table, asking, demanding, showing up to get better treatment, to get more rights, right? This has been the journey. We've made a lot of progress in terms of how much opportunity we have now, but it also, many of these opportunities still come at a great cost. Patriarchy still dictates, well, yeah, but you gotta be a certain way. You gotta fit the patriarchal mold. You gotta behave in ways we tell you to behave. You gotta comply, and then you can get some crumbs. So the reclamation, now the game has shifted from the outward political negotiations, although that still continues and that needs to continue. We're not at parity. And women's rights and women's body autonomy, that is still up for debate, and the war is on. The patriarchal war on women is on. And what PSD is that war internalized. And this is where the next frontier is for us, is to end this war within so that we can reclaim true power in the conditions that we've already established, thanks to the generations of women who've come before us, who fought, right, the outward battle. We have room to breathe. We have opportunity to make our own money, which, by the way, it was in 1988 that the law was passed in the US allowing a woman to take out a business loan without a male co-signer.
1988.
1988. Now,
Okay.
everybody zero in on the date. I can probably remember where I was in 1988.
That's insane. That's so crazy.
Yeah. So that's not ancient history. Okay. That's not ancient history. And that oppression lives in our subconscious. That trauma lives in our nervous system. And it shows up, ironically, the more we step into the spotlight, the more we reclaim our power, the more we make our money, the more we step into our influence, the more we experience that internal war, because those trauma adaptations, I call them prison guards in my system, they are trying to keep us safe based on all this trauma. And this is what the healing journey is all about. Yeah. It is not about dismantling patriarchy externally, although I believe this is one of the most effective ways of dismantling patriarchy externally, is by gaining your internal freedom so you can show up completely differently and not have buy-in into what external patriarchal rules dictate. But that's a slightly different conversation there.
And so a few things come to mind as you're talking, and tell me if I'm understanding this correctly. So our biggest barrier individually to making progress, is it that internal voice that beats me up, that says, there you go again. Oh, you did that again. Or, Jen, you, who do you think you are to make this kind of money? Or you need to do this, that, or the other. That we have a finely tuned voice that beats us up. So is that playing a role? And so what we once termed as a moral failure, a personal or professional failure, or I'm just not skilled enough, or whatever it is, that voice in our head, that chatter, is that really not about us at all? Oftentimes, I mean, sure, there may be times where we need to take a good look and make some changes. Of course, we need to be accountable to that. But so often it's stemming from this heritage we've been handed that we don't even know it. So we look internally and say, this is what's wrong with me, instead of this is what's wrong with this condition. You know, it's like my friend Sean Smith says with racism. He says, if you live in America and it's like we're all in a pool and you're going to get wet. I feel like patriarchy is the same thing. You can't be here and not be wet. The water, yes. We're all in the same water.
We're all in the same water. Yep.
And it's not man-hating either. I want to be super clear. This is not about, patriarchy and smashing it and this stress disorder and men are to blame. Oh no, men are equally victimized by patriarchy, as I understand it. So will you talk more about that and maybe from your own perspective, how you came to understand that personally, the beating yourself up, and that, it's not always your fault.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are so many things there. All right. So let's start with men. Patriarchy is a system of oppression that has traumatized people across the gender spectrum in different ways, in very different ways. And for men, for that gender box, the prescription of how one has got to show up has been very clear too. Just as for women in that gender box, there was no other gender box. There is no other gender box under patriarchy. There is no non-binary, no gender fluid. So there are two boxes. And so for men, the cost of membership in club patriarchy has been really high. They've had to cut off big parts of who they are authentically as humans, as whole humans. They could not be weak. They could not be emotional. They could not be nurturing even. The only emotions that patriarchy approves of in men are on the anger, aggression spectrum, which causes so much harm to men's mental health, to relationships. So yes, this is to say that trauma healing is for everyone, and understanding how oppressive systems have shaped us in different ways and traumatized us is essential. Yeah, talking about racism as a system of oppression, white people are traumatized in very different ways than Black people and people of color. A completely different experience. And it has also shattered humanity of white people participating in an oppressive system. So there are a lot of parallels, right? A lot of parallels. There's no equality in terms of being oppressed or not oppressed equally under any system of oppression, right? As white people, people of color, as men, women, people across the gender spectrum. And there is trauma for everyone, right? So it is really a collective effort to understand, unpack, and heal. And then you were talking about that self-berating voice. It definitely is one of the prison guards, but it is definitely not all of it, right? So it's an important prison guard. And so let's unpack this a little bit. So who else is on the team of prison guards? Who is keeping us stuck? How are they showing up? So first of all, they're showing up not because your mind is broken and you need to fix it. Something is wrong with your thinking. If you could just like change the way you think, then all of these things we see on the covers of diet magazines would work. Like, eat this, not this. Okay, don't eat cookies, eat kale. Don't eat ice cream, eat yogurt. Don't eat candy, eat fruit. Okay, got it. Got it. It's simple. I got it. Now I know what to do. I will never again, right? It doesn't work that way. It wouldn't be a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? If it did. And so sadly, we get stuck in this self-blame cycle and in this, okay, I just got to fix the way I think. I just got to fix the way I think. And it's just not productive, as anyone who's tried that has probably experienced. And by the way, that is not the sign that you are so broken that this doesn't work for you. It just doesn't work that way, because what is causing you to have these self-berating thoughts, the inner critic, the imposter syndrome, is this trauma, is the condition of the nervous system and your subconscious where they know that it's not safe. Based on the trauma, they know, because that knowledge is frozen in time. Okay, when trauma happens, that knowledge is frozen in time. So they, quote unquote, know that it's unsafe for you to be visible, to be wealthy, et cetera, et cetera. And so they're going to prevent you from that by creating this narrative that's making you feel small, inadequate, not okay, holding back, etc. But the thoughts are not the cause. They are not the cause. They are a symptom. And there are other symptoms. They also show up in the body. Symptoms like anxiety, depression, trouble sleeping, trouble getting aroused, having orgasms. Oh my goodness, there are so many imbalances, from hormonal imbalances to autoimmune conditions that have become an epidemic. And women are affected disproportionately to men, and women of color are affected disproportionately also to white women. So we can see the layers of trauma playing out here, right? And even conventional medicine acknowledges that somewhat like 95% of all conditions are stress related. And the stress is rooted in unprocessed trauma. Our body, our nervous system is constantly on edge because we're not feeling safe. So we're constantly in fight, flight, freeze response. We don't even notice that because it feels natural. It just feels normal. It feels normal. Stress is normal. So we don't know it. I start my book with the story of how I ended up in the emergency room with symptoms of a stroke, because my stress level was so high that it shut down the left side of my body. It was not a stroke. It was stress. Do you think I knew that I was stressed, Jennifer? No, I thought it was normal. And that is the danger that we have experienced. That's part of it. All these things feel normal. Well, I'm not quite happy, but who is? It's normal. I am not enjoying sex with my partner or solo. But who is? It's okay. It's normal. I don't sleep well. Who does? It's the pandemic. It's normal. I'm not enjoying my life. I'm not at home in my body. I hate the way I feel. I hate the way I look. But I look around me and everybody's on the same boat, unless it's an Instagram filter in many ways, not just visually, right? But also the filter of what people share. So yeah, and the suffering has gotten normalized, and we can live a completely brilliant life where we can have it all. So the trauma adaptations in the mind, in the body, and also in actions and choices. And this is the juiciest for me, because this is where we get into science that I wish everybody would know and talk about the discovery made in the field of neuroscience that our actions are decided in our subconscious. Our actions are decided. They are decided in our subconscious. So just let that drop in for a moment. Your subconscious already decided that you are you're not gonna answer this email right now because it doesn't feel safe, because it's a big opportunity, or because it's maybe you will need to set a boundary and it doesn't feel safe. So your nervous system is activated, your subconscious decided unsafe, you're not going to write it. And then your mind creates a story. Oh, I need to get a snack.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right?
Are you in my house?
We've been collecting this data through remote surveillance of everybody's house.
I'm serious. That's hysterical that you just said, I'm going to get a snack. That's so funny.
Right?
Yeah.
One of my clients termed the coin. She coined the term procrastinating. Maybe she didn't come up with it, but she used it. And I thought that was so on point. I'm procrastinating. That was her thing. Yeah. So we're procrastinating doing whatever, checking social media, or I need to urgently make, let's say, a well child appointment for my child for 2023. That's what our conscious mind is doing. It's just explaining away why we're not doing what we need to be doing. And then at the end of the day, we'll look at that and we go, oh, fuck, I never sent that email.
Yep.
And then we berate ourselves. What's wrong with me?
That's right.
And the answer is nothing. It has nothing to do with you. It's trauma, and that's how its adaptations operate to keep us safe. And in the process, they create a lot of suffering.
Okay, but here's the question, because it would be very easy to hear you say that and say, well, there it is. That explains it. So I'm a victim of circumstance. It's the trauma is making me do it. The trauma makes me want to eat nachos. The trauma is causing me to procrastinate. And I want to delve into that a little bit.
Yeah.
So that I know that's not what you're saying, but it would be really easy.
Yeah.
To just slide into that. And I can't help but wonder if there's a patriarchal component to that too.
Yeah,
we'll just slide into almost like a victim mentality of, well, I'm just a victim of my circumstances.
Oh, totally.
And I am this way. And that isn't what you're saying. But how does one, if this is imprinted, and if I use the wrong terminologies, because I am not a scientist as you are well schooled in this. If it is imprinted in DNA, RNA, this ancestral trauma, then how does one you cannot change your DNA or RNA, or can you, by knowing this and choosing differently, and then that changes for your future generations? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, you are. And I'm so glad you asked about this aspect of, well, okay, well, it has nothing to do with me, so I might as well. Like I have a carte blanche. That's my excuse. That's why I'm not achieving what I want to achieve. Or so patriarchal conditioning and this trauma, those prison guards, again, narrative, right? Watch your narrative. I'm not saying change your narrative, because when we do this trauma healing work, the narrative changes in and of itself. It doesn't need to keep you stuck in the invisible inner prison anymore. But watch your narrative and watch how it is disempowering when it is disempowering. If this narrative, okay, well, it has nothing to do with me, well, what am I to do, right? It's disempowering. That's your prison guards at play. because the information itself, to me, it's super empowering. Wait a minute. I didn't know this. Now I know this. Now I can do something about it. I don't need to stay invisible in a prison. I can get on the healing journey. I can use the tools. We have the tools that we've pulled together from so many modalities of trauma healing. So much great work being done on the planet right now involving the body, the mind, and the energy. And we call this integration of different modalities that we use very successfully, the thriving method, right? I discuss it in the book. We share it at our events, the thriving experience. You can come in, you can experience all of that. Why wouldn't you, right? But you might not, because the narrative would be disempowerment. Or maybe your narrative will say, oh, it's okay. It's another mumbo jumbo, blah, blah, blah. Somebody is, just making money off some other thing. Okay, is it empowering or is it disempowering to you personally, right? To you and only to you. And this is an honest question that we need to be asking ourselves, right? And cultivating that self-honesty without judging our narrative.
Yeah.
Simply as a scientist, as a good scientist, observing and not trying to fudge the data, right? Just observe what's going on and what effect it's having on you. And when you spoke about the intergenerational transmission, let me tell you a story. In the story, researchers introduced the smell of cherry blossoms to mice while simultaneously zapping their feet with mild electric shocks. These mice were then bred, and when their children and their grandchildren were exposed to the smell of cherry blossoms, they had a strong fear and anxiety reaction. All right.
Wow.
All right. So yeah, it gives me chills every time. So there was no storytelling. There was no narrative there. As far as we're concerned, mice don't sit around the fire, smoking a pipe, telling their grandchildren, oh, in my day, them bad cherry blossoms, you kids stay far away from those. All right. They never even experienced cherry blossoms and they never experienced electric shocks. However, the scientists saw that those connections were created, right? Those were paired. They actually even saw that in the brain, they had more receptors to detect the smell of cherry blossoms than the previous generations. Specifically, the darn cherry blossoms. If such a small experience, such an isolated experience had such a profound effect where the expression, right, the genes expressed differently and these subsequent generations literally evolved around this traumatic experience. What can we deduce about the countless traumas that women experienced, how we evolved to keep ourselves and each other safe from shining too brightly, from being outspoken, from being wealthy, et cetera, right? It's big.
Oh, it's huge. And before, I want to ask one other question, and then we'll take a quick break. The word safety and trauma, I think, can get misunderstood. Okay, so I'm going to out myself again. There was a number of years ago that I would have heard people referencing trauma and referencing safety and said, snowflake. Oh, well, how are we all so fragile?
Yeah.
I'm not the only one who's ever uttered those words.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to just say it out loud that I know I've said that in the past. And could you talk about that for a minute? Because I know you choose your words carefully. And I think those terms need to be defined because they get lumped too easily in perhaps a misunderstood arena. Because once upon a time, so I'm trying to think in terms of other people who are listening right now who are as new to this as I once was and still am learning. Trauma looks like a lot of things. There's little T trauma. There's big T trauma. That idea that I'm struggling with the words around it. I just want to be so tender and careful and not flippant in the way I approach trauma and
let
ask it.
me,
So would you just clarify that?
let me take a stab at where I think you're going, and correct me if I'm off base here. So are you pointing at this like, well, woohoo, was it really bad enough? Like your like little T, like little experience, little electric shocks and cherry blossoms versus like, well, this person survived genocide, right?
Yeah, I think what I'm understanding is there's not a hierarchy to trauma.
So
this maybe there shouldn't be, and there is.
Yeah, well, this is a really great question, because in no way, shape, or form, this conversation is meant to ever minimize the experiences of people that have been life-threatening, horrific experiences, big T trauma, right? In no way.
Right.
This conversation is meant to broaden the spectrum of what can be called trauma. And yes, the differentiation of capital T trauma, little t trauma can be helpful in understanding, okay, capital T are your life-threatening experiences, all right? Little t, developmental traumas, like your dad yelling at you, right? You feeling helpless. Stuff like that. There are so many little t traumas, just countless. And they've done studies, like the most referenced, the most comprehensive study ever done is the ACEs study. And it links very, very clearly the outcomes. They looked at health outcomes connected to little t trauma and how they wreak havoc on people's lives. So they cannot be minimized. They're different, but it's not a competition. It's not a comparison. Oh my gosh, it's because like I have this big trauma and you have little trauma. Like it doesn't make anybody better or worse, or anybody's trauma negligible, or, it's broadening the spectrum of the conversation. Everybody, the way I see it, if you are human, you have trauma, intergenerational trauma. Nobody escapes that. And the world is a pokey place. Nobody escapes little t trauma either. Right? And that was a big thing that kept me stuck in therapy for many, many years. I was studying to be a therapist. I was already a therapist. I was going to therapy, multiple therapists, many years, and I knew something was holding me back. I knew my nervous system was jumpy. I knew all these things were happening, but I didn't know what trauma I had because it didn't fit the conventional definition. I didn't experience anything life-threatening. Okay, I was not a big T trauma survivor. And I was even thinking, maybe I suppressed something. Maybe something horrible did happen to me, but I didn't remember. And then broadening the spectrum, it just gave me life. It gave me possibilities. Oh yeah, okay, I have trauma. Now I know what to do.
Yes.
I know I can heal it. And to your earlier point, yes, healing is also genetically transmitted. They've done studies on that. And not only genetically transmitted, our thrivers, people we work with in our programs, they tell us every day their entire family has changed. Their parents, their children, their teams, everybody changes around them when they change. So it's highly contagious. Your healing is highly contagious. And we can talk more about that when we return.
Oh, I love it. Okay. We'll be right back. And we're back. Okay. A couple things just came to mind. And Dr. Valerie, I I really appreciate the way you just broke out trauma and you broke it down and explained it a little more, because it is very easy, especially in this culture. I think about the ways we flippantly throw around words like, oh, I'm so traumatized. I shrunk my favorite pair of jeans. I was so traumatized because, such and such happened at the grocery store. We throw these terms around. Or I
Yeah.
feel unsafe. And we might joke about that at a party, because somebody says something, I feel unsafe. And so I want to make sure that those are defined. So will you explain this concept of safety? Because you've referenced it many times. And I know I even struggle with the word. So there's a reason I struggle with that. Is it about that idea that what is it we crave what is it we want when the word safe is used? Is it peace? Is it safety in our own skin? How would you define that?
Yeah, I love this question so much. And perhaps the reason we struggle to define it with words is because it's not an intellectual concept, it's an embodied concept. And so the best way to define it is through experience. And I can share with you that I did not know what safety was until I had my first conscious experience of dropping into savasana at the end of a yoga class. And that particular time, I was just able to drop in. Something was accomplished in this class, some grace, some magic, something shifted. Maybe like I forgot to worry about shit for a moment, right? I was there and I was just able to drop in, and I felt, whoa. I was like, what is this? What is this I'm feeling in my body? So I was in my 20s at the time. And it was an unfamiliar feeling. It's beyond being relaxed, because we think about being relaxed. Okay, I'm having a glass of wine. I'm chatting with my girlfriend. I'm really relaxed. Or I'm like having pizza in front of the TV. I am relaxed. Whereas the nervous system can be really activated, and we're just putting food and drink on top of it. And it creates that numbing effect. So we don't feel the activation and we feel quote unquote relaxed, but we're actually not relaxed. So what is that safety? I want to say, come and play with us. Come join us at the Thriving Experience. This is an event that we have a couple of times a year. It's virtual from the comfort of your own place. Come and join us and play. The thrivingexperience.com is where you can learn more. You can join us. And we'll do our best to help you get into that space. There are also a few tools that you can download on my website that can help you start getting to that place. I cannot guarantee that they will get you there right away, because I don't know where you are, what your experience is right now, what your experiences have been in the past, what your intergenerational experiences have been that you've inherited. But at drvalerie.com, you can download resources that are companions to the book. You can download the first chapter of the book there too and check it out. And some of these resources are practices that you can do that promote that safety, that help the nervous system settle. And they have a cumulative effect. The more you practice them, just like when I dropped into that state at the end of that particular yoga class, that was not my first yoga class I've ever taken. So it builds over time. You got to give it time. Just like, we've practiced trauma adaptations forever, for many generations. So for us to let down our guard of trauma adaptations, that is keeping us from going inside our body and feeling safe there and feeling comfortable in our own skin and experiencing pleasure and sleeping through the night restfully. That is all grounded in safety. None of these experiences are possible without feeling safe, right? So I encourage you to play with the tools. If it speaks to you, come join us at the event, because we'll be guiding you over the course of 3 days. Even if you can't join us for all 3, come for the period that you can, because we'll be doing it in a community. And what community creates, it's like going from your little laptop to plugging into this massive mainframe computer, super powerful, like think Google servers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what community does, because when we're regulating together, we're regulating our nervous systems, we're creating this well-regulated field, and it supports everybody in getting regulated. Even if on your little laptop, in your own space, you're not able to get into that state of safety, it may be easier accomplished in a communal environment. Just like in that yoga class, I was not alone. I was in a well-regulated room, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of magic happens. And yeah, so I hope that we'll get to share some of these experiences, because these are experiences that make everything else possible. When you're feeling safe, you can go out there, you can be visible without any backlash, without any self-sabotage. You can make money, you can make more money. Again, there are just so many ways in which that state of safety shows up, making every area of your life much more accessible, connected, shiny, enjoyable. Yeah, to me, there was one thing, right, that I would say we all need is safety. But again, I'm so glad that you asked, because that word can mean so many things. And sometimes it is like, what are you talking about? You have a roof over your head. You have food in your fridge. You're fucking safe. There's no war. What are you complaining about, right?
Right.
And it gets a lot deeper than that. A lot of high achieving women I know, and we work with so many of them, including myself, we've been operating in a high functioning freeze, in a high functioning state of nervous system that was just like shut down, because we've repressed so much, we've contained so much, and we performed at a high level, but we were never fully safe inside our body, inside our nervous system. It has never been safe to be a woman on the planet, right? If we really take a close, not ever on the planet, but during patriarchy and all these recent experiences, right?
So I almost think safe is synonymous with secure. And I kept picturing myself feeling secure in my own body with who I am. And I really think that could be used interchangeably, because what you're describing and the power of coming together in community, as you do with Thriving Experience and other things that you do, community is really important. We're a herd. I mean, we're human beings, and there is safety in numbers, right? I mean, if you think about from sheer survival, being alone versus being in a group, there's a big difference there in that sense of security. So I really appreciate that you talked more on that, because this really is about going back to, how can I just feel secure in me and in who I am and in my body? And when I am at my most secure in who I am and in my body, then what is possible for me, whether it's with regard to meaningful work, whether it is regard to economically being able to care for myself and others, whatever it is, whether it's to be able to give myself fully in a sexual relationship, whatever that is, be vulnerable with my partner. That makes sense to me now. It's like little light bulbs went off. Okay. Yeah. It's beyond just safe. It's secure. It's safe and secure.
If this word encapsulates that feeling for you, great. You can call it whatever. What's important is that you have an anchor of an actual experience in the body, that you know what that is referring to. And it always gets deeper. Like I thought like, oh, okay, like I was feeling safe because I was not feeling unsafe. And then I discovered, oh my gosh, it can get so much deeper and deeper and deeper. And that safety just, now I can feel this way in this situation. Like I can feel safe or secure, to use your word, when we're having an argument or when I'm being really vulnerable, right? Not just on my yoga mat in a safe yoga space. So it just deepens and deepens and deepens, right? And it's not an intellectual thing. I just really want our listeners to hear that, because just saying to yourself, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe, is not going to get you there. If anything, it may even trigger an opposite response from your nervous system, because if your nervous system is not feeling safe and you keep trying to, create that narrative, then the nervous system may keep on spiking, like, I'm going to show you, you're not hearing me. I'm signaling to you, we are not safe. What are you saying? Why are you saying we're safe? I've had clients over the years who actually developed panic attacks from overdoing all these affirmations.
Are you serious?
Self-help affirmations. Yeah, I'm safe, I'm safe. And their nervous system was just glitching. And then they started having panic attacks.
Well, of course. Oh my gosh, this is crazy that you're saying this. But of course, because if you think about, there's this exquisite balance of mind, spirit, body, right? Well, if it's completely out of alignment, something's going to go, no, this is not in alignment, not in alignment. You keep saying this, you're saying this, and it's bullshit. Why do you keep saying this?
Yes.
No, I call BS.
The body doesn't lie. That's the thing. We can make whatever story in the mind. And does it help to create a better story? Absolutely. It's less suffering. But if it's incongruent with the experience of the body does not lie, and the body will always assert its truth. Sometimes, and it's so painful to see. Women are achieving great things, and that's great. But then they end up on the operating table. They end up, my story in the book, I opened with sharing about my experience in the emergency room, right? Mm-hmm. That was me too. So just understanding that we cannot just repress and bypass and power over and move forward just on mindset alone. I'm going to psych myself into this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to press on. And there's a lot of this in the culture of just do it, like achievement, overpowering. There is time and place for pressing on, right? When it is aligned, when your body, mind, and spirit are aligned, it's like if you're not aligned doing exercise, let's say you're pushing weight and you're out of alignment, you're going to injure yourself. Mm-hmm. Not good. You got to be aligned. And yet we don't think about, my mind and my body, they're not aligned. So I'll just go with the mind.
Oh, no. Been there, done that.
Yeah, one way or another. And we have too many diseases, too many, just too much suffering to keep on ignoring that. Why are we ignoring that? It's time to listen to the body. The body never lies. And the body remembers what you don't remember. Even from the experiences that you didn't have, but you inherited, right? So that's why in the thriving method, we actually work through the body directly. It doesn't matter what the story is, but the body will tell us the truth always.
Yes. In fact, my human design coach taught me that. She said, Jennifer, your mind, because I said, and I say this all the time because this is one of my biggest epiphanies this year, is that there is this 3 parts to me, but for my entire life, my mind has run a totalitarian regime, pushing my body and soul into quiet submission. Yes. And she said, the mind is the voice of the ego, the personality. The body is the voice of your spirit and your soul. You cannot ignore your body, and you have been ignoring your body. And I thought, that's unbelievable. And so to your point, you get into a situation like the thriving experience. You get into community. You don't know what you don't know until you feel that moment of, that's it. Like when you came out of that yoga pose.
Yeah.
Then you can't unknow it once you know it.
Exactly. Everything changes. So even if you think, I'm good, I don't need this, my life is good. I thought that way too. Some of my most pivotal experiences happened when I came there for completely a different reason.
Huh.
Like I went to a trauma healing training. I didn't know it was trauma healing. It was like yoga for anxiety and depression. I'm like, I'm a therapist. I need to learn these skills. It was a certification program. Oh shit. The very first day, all this trauma started coming up. And I had no idea I had. So I emerged completely changed.
Mm.
But I didn't know I needed it. If I saw an ad, "Come heal trauma with us," I'm like, "What trauma? I don't have any." Right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, and so many, countless other opportunities that came my way. Thankfully, you know, even though I came for quote unquote the wrong reason,
Mm.
it worked, right? It just got me in the door. So even if you're mildly curious, like our next thriving experience, we're calling it business edition. It's specifically for women business owners. We're going to
Love that.
go deep into money. We're going to go deep into relationships, how they show up on our team, how they show up with relationships with our partners, our clients, and the perennial favorite. I know what I got to do. I'm not doing it. What's wrong with me, right? We're going to unpack this all. And so we're putting this on the door because these are legitimate things we're going to help women solve. And we're going to go so much deeper. We just want you to come in because you're like, oh, you're tracking the symptoms. Oh, all right. Yeah, my revenue does not exactly reflect the extent of what I know I'm capable of, or I suspect I'm capable of, or the gifts that I'm bringing to the world. Or, you know, I know there's a lot of stress in my business right now or in my relationship, or it could be easy. I know that. Okay. And we're saying, yeah, come in. We'll help you figure this out. And you're going to experience something you don't even know to expect.
Exactly. Oh, that's everything. I want that. I want that for all of us. I
Yeah.
want that for every human
Me
being, no
too.
matter
Me
how
too.
they identify,
I
because
am so passionate about this.
everyone deserves to feel safe and secure in
Safe and
their
secure and
own
whole.
body and mind and whole. Yes, whole, not segmented, not
Yeah.
eviscerated, none of that.
Yeah.
Oh, so this is our charge, my friends. This is our charge, is to listen deeply to conversations like this, have conversations like this. In my opinion, we can't get it wrong. Just own what we don't know and ask questions, even if they feel foolish. That to me is also part of that whole oppressive force that wants to just shut us up is, well, I don't want to sound foolish. I don't want to sound dumb. I don't want to. So I just would rather say nothing. No,
Absolutely.
say it, speak it. It matters. It really does.
Yes.
And get in community, whether it's through thriving experience or it's in some other way connecting. And then take note. Don't you feel like a way to pay attention to this, Dr. Valerie, is look at the ways you might fight something or flee something
Yeah.
or freeze or fawn,
Yes.
right? Look at so that you can just take it as a data point.
Yes.
So this is information to show me I am responding in a way or I'm reacting in a way, as opposed to just grounded in what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I actually learned that from you now. That just came out of my mouth. And I don't think that originated from me. I think it was your master class or something. Anyway, it was something brilliant of just stop for a minute. You don't have to fight with it. You don't have to condemn yourself because you're having any
Yeah.
of those responses. They're data points. They are information to say, pay attention for a minute. There may be
Yeah.
more here.
Yeah. Be a good scientist in terms of just observe, don't jump to conclusions, let alone judgments, right? And when you find yourself judging, don't judge that, right?
Mm.
Just observe. Okay, it's not interesting. That is happening. And this is happening.
Yeah.
We've internalized this war that patriarchy has been waging against women forever, and frankly, against the planet and all beings and people across the gender spectrum. We've internalized that. We've internalized that oppressive way of relating to ourselves, talking to ourselves, like what you said about your mind being a dictator, right? Running an oppressive regime.
Mm.
That's been the culture that we've internalized. Now we want to create a better world. We want to move forward from the world where it's all fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all the wars and suffering and oppression and discrimination. To create a better world, we need to start here. We need to end the war within.
Yes.
We need to find that security, right? And it's all experiential. And we need to connect with community so that we can keep on spreading it, keep on spreading that.
Yeah.
And that's how we change the world. We embody this change.
That's right.
To me, this is where it begins. To me, this is how it comes full circle.
Well, and I feel like the second part of that, when we do that for and with ourselves, is we suddenly have the capacity to have grace for others and compassion for their process as they're trying to do the same thing we are.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so when you know that, like, we're all in this together, friends, like, let's show each other that bit of grace and that compassion. That's going to make a big difference too. And so suddenly you can see something with eyes wide open to go, oh, that's what that is. That's not them. That's not that heart. We all are love. And so that's no wonder this doesn't resonate. No wonder this feels oppressive, because it's not the stuff we're made of ultimately.
Yeah. I see that in thrivers who are going through our healing journey with us in our programs. And then they look at their partner with a completely different gaze, not judging, not confronting. They can be very clear in their communication about what's working, what's not working for them, and they can understand where they're coming from with their own traumas, with their own reactions. And so their partners get seduced onto the healing journey of their own as well, and they continue on this journey together. And it's just magnificent. It doesn't happen from, as Pema Chodron said, clobbering people over the heads with your peace sign, right?
Yes.
I used to clobber my partners over the heads with self-help books. You got to read this.
Oh my gosh.
You got to understand this. You have this problem, right?
Same. Yeah. And why wouldn't you, if you know something's wrong, why wouldn't you want to fix it? What's wrong with you?
Oh my gosh, all this aggression, all this fight response, I was completely unaware of, And I share more about my own, the wondrous adventures of the kind in the book. Yeah. As well as from other thrivers, just to say, we're human, we're having this human experience. Let's just start with getting more and more honest about where we are and understanding that, what if we're not broken? What if nothing is wrong with us? And what if we have truly an unlimited potential to be, do, have, experience anything and everything that we desire? What if we don't have to sacrifice parts of ourselves? What if we get to be who we are, whole beings? And you don't need to take my word for it. In fact, I hope you do not. I hope you get on this journey and start having your own experiences that bring you that evidence. Oh, yes, I can. Oh, yes, this is available to me.
Yeah. I love that you use the word thrive, by the way. Y'all, just take a minute and look up what thrive means. I mean, this is what we were made for. And I don't believe you should settle for anything less. And we offer this to future generations. We, by virtue of pursuing this for ourselves, we offer permission and invitation.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And more than that, permission and invitation, yes, but also safety. And also we change the genetic expression in one generation. They've done studies on that. Fascinating. So what we pass along is a whole other world, is a whole other reality.
So incredible. Oh, my friend, I am so grateful. I know you. Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you for and thank you for pursuing this work and, resonating, a work that resonated with your soul, and it's hard won. I realize that. And I thank you for that, because we all benefit. And I'm just so glad you took time to be here with all of us. Y'all join the conversation, please. Again, I say this every time, and I will always say this. This isn't just Dr. Valerie and I. This isn't just my guest and I. This is all of us. You have stepped in and are sitting on the couch with us, as in the way that I see it. And join us on Instagram. There's so many ways to connect with us, but honestly, on Instagram, I'm at Being Real Jen. Valerie is at Dr. Valerie Rain on Instagram. Correct, Valerie? I got that right.
DRVALERIE, Rain, REIN.
Yes. And in the show notes, y'all, I'm going to put links so that you can connect to Dr. Valerie's work. You can find her book. I'll make it as easy as possible on you so that you can connect with us there, anywhere. But please, let's do this together. We're in the herd together.
We are in the herd.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for having me, Jennifer, and everybody who has shared your time, precious time with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right. We'll see y'all next week. Listen for Real is produced in Rockland, California, and is edited and mixed with the help of Mark Edward. Our music, entitled Zero, is written and performed by Shannon Curtis. If you believe conversations like these belong in the world, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And even better, share it with someone else as a real conversation starter. We'll see you next time.